the question she finally accepted, I had to go 3 times before she would even show me an answer. And on the third one, the wording she accepted was, "Will we have a successful recording today?"
Successful.
And then after all that, she said, "Most likely."
Like, good luck, babes.
I was like, okay, all right. You were pretty particular to then give me nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But divination, it'd be like that sometimes.
Sure.
Like,
I mean, my tarot cards drive me all the time. I feel like that's part of what divination is for them to be like, okay, take several seats.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Hello, Coven.
Hello.
We're talking about Wendy, my magic 8 ball. I guess I should show her for
Yeah,
anyone watching on
It's
YouTube.
important that people get to
She's
see her.
going to hang out today, just around,
mm-hmm.
because we're here to talk about July, and the energy is fraught.
Yo. I feel like June was a tiny reprieve. Tiny, but it's June. We're recording in June. It's also gone so fast that I was like, hey, wait, no, I wanted this for longer.
June has been so weird. It's gone so quickly. I'm like, I guess it's Pride, sort of. I'm wearing my Pride shirt today that Jeanna got for me.
From Reagan.
But like, yeah, we love Reagan. But like, I feel like it like was like blink and you miss it. But the only times I've felt like here is experiencing like the worst fucking news cycles from absolute hell. We're recording this on June 22nd. We were supposed to record yesterday, but our bodies were mad. So we were like, let's give ourselves some grace and record tomorrow. And then Trump bombed Iran last night. And we were like, okay, well, we're still going to record tomorrow because, you know, this is the world we live in where every day is a new nightmare. So
yeah, literally Gina was like, we should talk about it. And I fully was like, I will have 0 things to say about this unfolding world trauma, but I will be there.
But I mean, I think that's a real and valid thing to say of I have nothing to say about this yet because it's the first 24 hours still since it happened. And none of us are in positions of power to particularly do anything about it. But also just based on this particular president and the news cycle we've had for the last 6 months, by the time this episode comes out, who knows what
anything could happen. Yeah.
Like just it's going to be a surprise to him. It's going to be a surprise to all of us. Oh, I just somehow caught a screw that came out of the dining room table that I'm recording this on. So this is some kind of symbol.
Hang on.
All right. Like, if your table doesn't need that screw, it belongs to be in a spell somewhere.
I know.
I'm gonna do it with my fingers.
I love you. You're my hero.
Oh my God, you're so hot, Meg.
I guess I should have known better than to say that it happened because I should have known she'd just come right over and be like, I'm going to fix it. These are 2 genders. Oh, a screw fell out. And, oh, I'm going to fix it.
And then me, the bald friend on Zoom, who's like, you guys are doing great.
Yes, exactly. How many gays does it take to do a home project?
Screws are loose everywhere in the world. It's basically should be the episode title.
Screws are loose. The screws are coming off.
July 2025, the screws are loose.
Yeah. Not that I have like much to contribute on necessarily. Hey, the US is doing war again. The US is doing empire again. We'll never stop, but here's a new one. But obviously, I pulled the chart when I saw the news and, of course, was reminded that Jupiter just went into Cancer, which is notable to me because the US, if we use the Sibley chart for the United States, which B and I talked about in our election episode, like lifetimes ago. The US itself is a Cancer, but also has Jupiter in Cancer closely conjunct the sun. And the thing about Jupiter and Cancer, which I talked about in the June forecast, is that it's an expansion of self. It's an expansion of belief, of identity, and it goes many different ways. So, a purportedly isolationist president, like enacting empire, is a very Jupiter return thing to happen for this country. I looked back just like at, the history of a brief astrological overview of the history of war in this country. And it's really notable to me that Jupiter has been in Cancer for like some of the most recent conflicts. When 9/11 happened and the Patriot Act was enacted, Jupiter was in Cancer. Obviously, the Iraq War didn't start until later, but that initial inciting shift happened during a Jupiter in Cancer return for the country. And then the Gulf War as well in the early 90s was a Jupiter in Cancer initiation. So was the War of 1812, but we don't have to get into that since I don't think anyone living has any recollection of that unless you're a vampire, in which case, let us know.
Please get in the comments, out yourself publicly.
Yes, but I think it's just really notable to observe that this recent trend in international conflict and like fights over resources and fights over empire, and like Iran just a few months ago had announced that they had found like some new rare earth mineral deposits, which are actually like the thing that smartphones and military weapon systems and satellites, it's like that's the most important resource of the next century, not oil. It's rare earth mineral deposits, and Iran has a ton of them that they just announced. And China's the other one who has a lot. So it's just like resource war, empire war, and this kind of nationalist rhetoric that gets incited feels very Jupiter in Cancer to me. I also want to call out, because Bee reminded me before we started recording, that of course George W. Bush has a lot to do with our present situation. GW was also a Cancer sun. He has Saturn in Cancer, and Trump has Mercury, Venus, and Saturn in Cancer as well. And the US, in addition to having Sun, Jupiter, also has Mercury, Venus. So there's also a big way in which both GW and Trump are sort of functioning as the central like figurehead of identity, also like speaking on behalf of the US's natal chart. I don't want to go too deep with that because I didn't prep it, but that's just, I think, some context as we move forward. Who knows what'll happen in the next week? Not me.
Yeah, Trump and the US and Bush, they all have really interesting numerological alignments as well. Like Trump has is a 4 life path. So this rare earth mineral, and 4 is all about earth and building and resources. So you being like, this is a resource war is like, yes, that is how he comes to an emperor life path, a 4 life path. And Bush has a 4 public persona. And then if you flip them, Bush is actually on a 33-6 life path, which we do not have to talk about, but I find that so fascinating. I can't stand it. But Trump has an 11 public persona. So again, this grandiose, larger than life, also somewhat Teflon, like I see that. But also America, the country, July 4th, that's 7/4, that's 11 as well. Trump and America share a public persona of 11. So the idea of them like going to battle together in terms of some kind of myth or narrative, that's all very much like in the numbers, unfortunately.
Yeah. Meg, anything to add?
Fuck this shit.
Yeah.
Yes. Cosign.
That's all I got. The tarot's not, I don't pull cards for like, any of this. So all I've got is that this sucks. And if you've had a really shitty week or a shitty month, hi, I see you, come sit with me. It's been fucking brutal. And I think that, we have some medicine and some ideas and some suggestions and some rituals and routines and things to offer you, but also like, if you're just drowning in it right now, that's also very reasonable. I feel like I didn't do anything for the last 3 days except like kind of stare at the floor and cry. And that's kind of just, that's allowed too, sometimes we just have to feel it and not try to push ourselves to do anything else, because that has to happen first for a lot of us. So for most people, honestly, you gotta feel it before you can do anything else. I think I still have makeup on my face from crying this morning. I don't mind owning it. Like, I've been a mess this week, and it's because the news has been bad, and like, my clients are having a hard time, and I feel that really deeply. And there's just like there's a lot happening, and I think it's always worth kind of saying when things are hard, and like modeling that it's okay to acknowledge that things suck, and that sometimes that hits us in really real ways. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, and we don't have to make meaning of collective grief either.
No, this
Like
is not
there
a, like, everything happens for a reason. Like, no, sometimes
No.
really shitty, terrible things happen because shitty, terrible people make shitty, terrible choices. And
Yeah.
it impacts innocent people that do not deserve it. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I literally said to you yesterday, I was like, I just had a beautiful afternoon with our lesbian wives. We come in from the pool to find out that old men with small dicks are playing war games again. Like, stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it.
Yeah.
Just chill. Just fucking chill.
Okay, well, in that vein of practical, helpful,
Yeah.
supportive, just before we get into the numerology and the rest of July, my goodness, July. July is a lot of seven energy. And when I was thinking about this, I thought about spiritual grief tending. And this does straddle the line between 7 and 8, I think, a little bit. So this is work that we might start now in June, honestly, whenever you're receiving this from us, and then through July and even into August as well. But just some ideas of how to do that. This is a great time for any kind of consecration magic. If you are using magical tools, find out ways to clear them, clean all of your spiritual tools. There are a plethora of ways you can do this, but salt is a great way to stay kind of earthy and practical. Salt, and sometimes water, but definitely if you're using tools, like check if they can handle water. A lot of stones can't actually, and that's something that nobody tells you. So just double check you're not putting your selenite ones in water. Clear them, and then you can reconsecrate them. So you can actually set intentions for your tools, make sure that you're in right relationship with them. Like, this is all spiritual tending work that we don't do a lot of the times. And just like, bodies, we need to move things through the system. We have to move things through our spiritual tools and physical systems as well. This can also be mundane cleaning, also spiritual or energetic protection magic. That's a big one, clearing your energy, especially if you're a practitioner and work with clients, but also if you're just like a human who works with the general public. Like, you got to be clearing your energy and sending things back to people and calling your energy back to you, like whatever that looks like for you. You could take spiritual or ritual baths. You could just do it with sound. I know people who use bells or clapping. You can just clap 3 times around your energy to move things along. And then rose is a really great ally for working with complex grief. So rose in either its floral form or its quartz. You can also work with the oil or rose scents or rose waters. That feels really nice for Cancer season too, to work with rose water. You can steep it in tea. And then one other crystal friend that's just coming through is peach calcite. It's kind of rare. It's not one of those that's like regularly talked about. I bought a piece specifically because of this property. But it's peach calcite is said to work with old memories that you need to somehow either sweeten or put in some kind of bubble enough to like acknowledge it and move on. So yeah, rose quartz and peach calcite for any kind of memory or grief work could be really nice.
I love that.
That's some really beautiful medicine. And is also reminding me that we have not bought fresh flowers for the house in a minute. And that's something that we usually are pretty good about, but it's been a few months. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to get roses this week. That's a really good reminder.
That sounds nice.
A lot of people also work with roses in visualizations. Like, you can visualize a rose and you can send a rose a lot, or like grounding chords with roses. I know I'm not a visualization person, but I know a lot of people, the rose can be in your mind.
But there is a really brilliant, wonderful practitioner named Christiana Smith who has a Patreon and a TikTok, and you might have seen their work out in the world. But I wrote some tarot spreads about their work at one point, and we'll find it. I think it was a collection that I sent out to my newsletter, so we can put it in the show notes here. But they have a 4-step process for moving through grief that I wrote tarot spreads around. But I think whether or not you want to use tarot, I wanted to just offer this kind of 4 steps for moving through grief because I've found it really supportive in my own work. The first step is literally just grieve. You have to let your body feel the feelings. I know it's uncomfortable, and grief can often look like anger or like sorrow or like sadness or like irritability or like exhaustion or like any number of other things, usually more than one at a time. Grief is a really complex emotion. It lives in our physical self as well as in our minds, in our hearts, in our relationships, in our embodied experience, kind of throughout the ways that we move. And so the first step is always grieve. And in every grief class I've taken or grief resource I've explored, the first step is always grieve. You actually have to feel the feelings. And I know that sucks, but that hangs a lot of people up and kind of prevents you from doing the rest of the work. So you got to start there. But the second step is ground. And it's really about figuring out what your resources are, making sure that you are well resourced, whatever that might look like for you. Giving yourself physical steps that you can do to calm your body, giving yourself, rich relationships where grief is something you actually talk about instead of just saying, does this suck? And then moving on, really giving yourself the space to explore that in an embodied way, whatever that means for you. And then the third and fourth steps are more intellectual. Step 3 is imagine, and it really gives you space to start thinking about options and possibilities beyond where you are. Imagination work is really important. That can look like play. We play D&D with our friends. And when I tell you D&D has actually changed my life, I really mean it. Like having that way of collaborative storytelling, projects like this, where we're talking about magic and spiritual practice on a monthly basis, but also just like video games or reading books or writing down dreams that you have for yourself or whatever imagination work looks like for you, that can be a really supportive thing. Channel that magician and get in there. And then the last one is strategize. And it's really about taking action and actually turning that grief, transmuting it into a direct action practice that you do with consistency. This isn't about doing one big volunteer thing or one big march one time. It's instead about finding a couple of small things that you can commit to and do over time. Because when you can harness your grief into an actual real life practice that puts you in contact with other people and allows you to say, this is the thing that I'm doing right now, it really helps to transform that grief into something that is actually going to help ultimately solidify and strengthen and stabilize you in a way that's going to build long-term resilience. And that's my piece. But
I'm glad you shared that.
Me too.
I think it's a really helpful. I've done longer frameworks. The grief facilitation program that I did is a 10-step process. But I find that 4-step one to be kind of a nice condensed version of what you can do by yourself, and that you can like gently invite other people into. And like I said, we'll drop the tarot spreads that I wrote for those in the show notes too, in case you want to explore those with the tarot. So
Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 4 is a great place to start for July, I think, because in a numerological framework called the Magic Square, there are many versions of this, but the one that I use is referred to as Pythagorean arrows. They break up the numbers in terms of qualities and types of energies, and it can be really useful. And it shows us that 1, 4, and 7 are linked numbers. The type of energy that 1, 4, and 7 bring is practical, but 7 is pretty pragmatic and a little brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that I wrote down for us in July of 2025 is that this is work in progress summer. This is WIP summer. So Brat is out, WIP is in. We are works in progress this summer. So 7 can bring clarity, but it can also bring fog. And 7 is a really intense energy. And so something I wanted to name more about, like, I didn't know that we were going to go to war yesterday, but it was like, I wrote, this is fervor. This is spirituality. This is religion. This is fervor. If 6 is where the bees build the hive, then 7 is like the hum of the swarm, that collective energy that builds in a crowd when everyone is together. And so I really want everyone to watch their senses of righteousness this month, including our leaders. We'll see, TBD. But yes, I think this over kind of inflated sense of story and righteousness is present this month. So again, continuing our assuming best intentions work that I talked about in June last month, the 7-coded phrase that came through for July is everyone is doing the best they can with the information and tools they have at the time. And I think it's really seven coded and really practical to say like, hey, this is what we're working with and this is what I got for you. And hopefully that will change and I'll learn more. But it also, if we're assuming best intentions, then this is kind of the next step to say we give grace, we give space. And that also means that people will then fall short of this, right? Maybe we wish other people had more information or better tools or was doing more or less with them. I think this is where seven kind of holds mystery and spirit, but it also holds infallibility and human error. So we will never truly understand what the fuck is going on around here. And I think that energy is unfortunately really present here. So our work this month lies really in those moments when we have to be honest about errors and missteps and miscommunications. Maybe they're our own, maybe they're other people, and just saying, hey, you fucked this up and that really affected me in this way and we have to talk about it. And that's the key. People are not mind readers, although seven energy would really like for them to be. Because it's not comfortable. Like seven is kind of an uncomfortable energy. It is practical and sturdy, whereas six is soft and tender. So we do have our feet underneath us this month in a way that we don't in other numeric experiences. But July will really ask for us to engage with the world from that place of pragmatic awareness and acceptance, first and foremost. And it can feel so much easier, especially right now. And I am kind of talking to myself in this one. It can feel easier to put our head in the clouds and to say, like, I have too much going on down here. Like, I couldn't possibly engage with the outside world. Seven is also delusion, illusion, disassociation. Think Seven of Cups, all the options, not being able to make the quote unquote right choice. So it can feel easier to opt out of the hardship, but in July, we're actually doing ourselves a huge disservice to not engage, because that's how we're going to get to the really good parts of 8 and 9 in the months to follow. Stay really present, flexible, honest, in your integrity. Seven is kind of like sneaky energy a little bit too, like what's going on in the shadows, what we're not really seeing. So I think if you are I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in the cauldrons, but like if you're being a little bit of a snake, you might get caught and you might have to like own your shit. We will get through July. That is my closer, is that we will get through July, hopefully with our eyes open. Remember that clarity is kindness, that the tough lessons, the threadbare realizations, and the necessary boundaries that you may have identified or set in June get to come with us. And, they're a part of us now. So July's going to get a little cloudy, but who doesn't love a little mess?
There's a lot of that's really resonant with the astrology, and I just wrote down two things that I'll say before getting into what I've prepared to offer. Lord, that's very consistent. It's just like that idea that we're all coming to information at different times. I think like exactly what you were saying, and not berating people for just learning about something. I think that said, like that's where punching up happens. It's like we can berate our leaders for not speaking up. We can berate them for not knowing, but the internet, especially like culture, especially internet leftist culture, just with the constant critique of people for like just, leaving out one detail, like let's just pull it back.
Yeah. And it's worth saying too that 4 is the system and then 7 is a graduation of that. Like, don't forget that we're still dealing with really big systems. And so we started at 1. So we have a really good sense of the individual, but then we are getting it's like the idea of recalibrating what is individual and what is systemic in 7 energy, and remembering that like the system's never going to be totally clear to you. So let's not put on the individual this punching up is so good, Jeanna.
the last few months, like, well, in addition to V for Vendetta just going on a loop in my head, like 24/7, that line from the Hunger Games, remember who the real enemy is something I just like want to scream when I see infighting. Again, not that people in communities don't get to disagree, but especially when we are in crisis, and we are in crisis, and like many groups in this country are in crisis. Like, remember who the real enemy is, and it's not each other.
Not trans people. It's not people from the Middle East.
It's not immigrants.
People. It's not immigrants.
Like,
It's not undocumented people.
yeah.
It's the billionaires, guys. It's the billionaires and fascists. Eyes on the prize.
Eyes on the prize. Big coaching energy from Meg Jones Wall. Eyes on the prize, guys.
Lock it up.
So this is all very Uranus. And the big story of July, astrologically speaking, is that rebel, rule breaker, change maker, disruptor, earthquake bringer Uranus is changing signs from Taurus to Gemini. Uranus has been in Taurus since May 2018. This placement has really seen us through like the first Trump administration, COVID, Biden, a major economic recession, the election, the last 6 months, the recent bombing of nuclear facilities in another country. And the previous Uranus in Taurus transit had been from 1934 to 1942. And so that witnessed the Great Depression and the onset of World War II. So again, transits, history, it just repeats itself. The outer planets take a while to move, but they bring very, very noticeable change on a collective, genuinely worldwide scale. Like when I'm looking back at historical trends, like with my We've Been Here Before lecture that I'll link in the show notes, I'm primarily looking at the outers. And 2025 is such a big year and has felt like such a big year for many reasons, but also because all the outers have now moved like very recently after being in the same sign for 8, 10, 15 years. You know, Neptune is now in Aries, Pluto is firmly in Aquarius, Saturn and Jupiter both changed signs, and now Uranus is the final one, really bringing the story home. And it's really notable to me also that the outer planets plus Saturn have all transitioned from being in earth and water signs to fire and air signs. So just very, very different feeling. Like a lot of astrologers, myself included, were saying that by June, July, the year was going to feel completely different than it did in January. And I think that is bearing out. So Uranus enters Gemini July 7th, so pretty early this month. It will retrograde back into Taurus on November 8th, but then re-enter Gemini for good, April 26, 2026, where it will be until May of 2033, because that's a year that's coming. So
Allegedly.
allegedly. So this first few months from July to November is going to give us kind of a little teaser, a little sneak preview of what the next 7-8 years are going to look like. And I talk about this in the We've Been Here Before lecture, but Uranus in Gemini historically has been a period of like really major upheaval for the United States. The Revolutionary War happened or kicked off during Uranus and Gemini, the Civil War as well. On a very literal level, Uranus is that like I'm thinking about as someone who's talking about how bad AI is every single day. Uranus is bringing change to Gemini's information networks. So like what we believe, but more so how information is being distributed, how people are thinking or not thinking, how innovations in media and technology are impacting cultural consciousness and the public at large. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on AI developments that are going to be coming up, and also on the continued collapse of legacy media. Stay tuned. So that's a lot of the big stuff. That's a lot of like very big picture historical framing for it. But more locally, more personally, when an outer planet changes signs like this, I think it gives us all a really clear opportunity to check back in with ourselves and to notice like what has changed in our lives since May of 2018. Especially given that the planet in question is Uranus, which is all about chaotic neutral. You can look at the Taurus house in your chart to notice what has shifted in the topics that house pertains to, those areas of life, you know, over the last 8 years. And for me, just to give kind of a personal example, Taurus is my fourth house. I don't have any planets there, but it's my fourth house of home and family. And so in the last 8 years, I wrote and published a memoir that had so much to do with my own upbringing. I made a lot of significant moves to literal homes. I lived alone as an adult in my own studio for the first time ever for a number of those years, which was so special. Of course, Meg and I also, that ended because Meg and I moved in together, and we have found what we hope is our you can never say forever, but our as long as is possible New York home. The less nice side of Uranus going through my fourth was that my last living grandparent passed away, and I became permanently estranged from my own parents. And I've also really dived into ancestral work partly as a way of coping with all of that during this time. So I would just encourage folks to take a beat, look at the topics associated with the Taurus house in your chart, and just do some journaling, some reflecting. These kinds of major transit changes rarely make themselves apparent immediately. It's a slow unfolding over time. So I find it's less about, what change can I expect with Gemini, and more, I would invite folks to reflect on the last 8 years. The other major event of the month that super relates to a lot of what Bee was saying is that we have the second Mercury retrograde of 2025.
I could feel it coming.
You were like, I knew it. I knew it.
There's that bitch.
Mercury will station retrograde in Leo on July 18th. And again, this doesn't mean you stop your life and that you don't sign anything or look for a new job. It just means that we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's, triple check things, ask for a fresh set of eyes on something, take a beat before sounding off on social to someone. Miscommunication is the name of the game during Mercury retrograde. So just be patient with yourself and also with others. And last but not least, for a little over half the month, we are still in Cancer season, which we talked about a lot at the top. But on July 22nd, we enter the heart of summer here in the Northern Hemisphere because Leo season kicks off. I love Leo season. The full moon is in Capricorn on July 10th this month, and the new moon in Leo arrives July 24th. And the new moon, I think, is going to be particularly notable. I love a Capricorn lunation. I have a Capricorn moon myself, but the full moon in Capricorn is pretty unaspected. It's pretty chill, hanging out by itself. The new moon in Leo on the 24th is going to pull in and be making aspects with Uranus, Pluto, Saturn. So I think the new moon is going to really make obvious some of the current cultural stories that are beginning to pop up and play out. Yeah, I'll have more detail about the lunations in my newsletter, but I've been talking forever, so I'm going to turn it over to Meg.
So I keep looking over here because I actually still have the cards out. So I want to show you our theme card for this month. But if you're new here, these are not predictive cards because I'm way too tired for that. So instead, we're just thinking about vibes, advice, things to pay attention to, things to be aware of, ways to take care of yourself. And our theme card really is just kind of an overall, what's this month going to kind of have to offer for us? So it's very appropriate, given that we're moving into Leo season, that our theme is the sun. And this is from the Next World Tarot. I don't know if I can get it to focus.
Ooh, yeah, there
it is.
So I wanted to show this one just because I really love for those who aren't watching, it's someone sitting on the ground, a rather young looking person, and they're kind of reaching up to the sun. They're sitting outside, they're surrounded by big, beautiful flowers. They're sitting kind of crisscross applesauce, and they're sort of reaching up to the sun and kind of trying to grasp the sunlight in their hands. It's just a really beautiful image that I wanted to share because this archetype is often really associated with celebration and abundance and joyful achievement. And for a lot of folks, this can be a really lovely card to see. So if that's you, I want to have you celebrate that because God knows we need things to celebrate right now. But the sun can also be a challenging card, especially if you're someone that might struggle with visibility or who tends to feel more comfortable being able to move at a speed that allows you some privacy. I see you. The sun can also be a little bit challenging because it speaks to things sometimes being dragged into the light or being revealed or being exposed, perhaps even that the harsh glare of sunlight can leave us kind of dazzled or even blinded, right? Sunlight, you can't really look at it directly. It illuminates things. It clarifies things. It allows us to see things and dance in the sunlight. It literally brings life and joy. But it can be a lot to hold, right? I mean, I'm pale as fuck. I burn if I'm in the sun for more than a few minutes. So the sun also brings its own challenges. And so I always want to make space for that when I talk about this archetype, because the sun is not always comfortable for folks. But when we're looking at the sun, we're really thinking about being near the end of a cycle, right? We're right close on the end of the major arcana. And so here we are finding clarity both internally and externally. So I say this is a card that often really forces us to acknowledge reality as it is, not just as it could be, which is also important, but really paying attention to where we are in the present, the reality of who we are, the reality of our current world, the reality of what is around us and what is within us. And so as we move into July 2025, this month, I want you to think about confidence and about fortification and about resilience. These can be like kind of SAT kind of big words that can kind of feel so big and bold that we don't actually know how to connect with them personally. But I really want to invite you to see yourself clearly and think about what your kind of confidence looks like, or what makes you really feel confident. I want you to think about fortification and resilience in terms of what makes you feel strong and stable, what makes you feel well resourced, what makes you feel appreciated and cared for, and what makes you feel like you still have the strength to keep on going. What does it look like to see yourself clearly? What does it look like to really honestly acknowledge where you are and who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? None of us are perfect, and thank God for that. Perfection's so fucking boring. But what does it mean to acknowledge all of the parts of yourself, even the parts that you might be more comfortable hiding in the shadows or not dragging out into the light? And what does it mean for us as a collective, since this is kind of a universal collective card, to be willing to look at the truth of our reality instead of only acknowledging the parts that are comfortable, right? I just have to say, we've been talking a lot about the state of the world and what's happening. And particularly in these ideas of colonialism and white supremacy, there is so much avoidance of the reality of privilege or of power or of wealth disparity or of all of the ways that people who are part of the global majority still tend to be marginalized in this country. And I think part of what makes that work so uncomfortable is that it requires us to acknowledge privilege in ways that might activate other parts of us that still might be marginalized, right? We are all white queers, right? I am a white non-binary person. My whiteness is always going to come first. That doesn't erase or, diminish the parts of me that might not fit into this world as well, or that might be under attack by governments, or that might be dismissed or disparaged or insulted by people who have more privilege in those areas. But not acknowledging my whiteness causes a whole new set of problems, and it really doesn't allow me to engage with the opportunities that I have in a full and complete way. So I think the sun can really be about sitting in that tension of what we actually do have available to us and what we need to see clearly so that we can embrace it and actually utilize it, right? I have the ability to speak in the way that a lot of people are not safe to speak. And it's important for me to do so even when it puts me in different kinds of risks, but gotta keep doing it because we're gonna rock that sun. Our truth card for this month is the Knight of Pentacles. And in the Next World Tarot, this card is actually labeled the methodical approach, which I think is really beautiful and apt for our truth for this month, right? Remember that our truth is thinking about something to process internally, something to be aware of, something to consider, something to really investigate within ourselves. And so as a truth for this month, it can be what came to mind first was this idea that doing something with really steady intention and loving devotion and purposeful discipline is a really essential way to get shit done and also honor those deep longings that we have. The Knight of Pentacles is not in a rush, but the Knight of Pentacles knows where they're going and is willing to do what it takes to get there, even if it takes a while. And so this month, I want you to really think about what you are personally devoted to. I want you to think about the goals and ambitions and values that have your heart and that you physically show up for. And I want you to think about how you are showing up for the things that you care about in a consistent way. Now, consistent can be a word that has feelings and then brings things up. So I want to be clear that consistency does not have to mean showing up every day, every week, or even every month. It just means honoring our body's needs and showing ourselves flexibility or grace in how we show up. Mm-hmm. Just because we can't show up to a thing in exactly the same time in exactly the same way every single time, or with the consistency that we might see someone else being able to show with, doesn't mean that we are not still showing devotion to that thing. And I often think of the Knight of Pentacles as having a lot of love and respect for the body, or perhaps struggling to show love and proper respect to the body. So I think there's work here specifically around, what does it mean to be honest about your personal approach to something? What does consistency look like for you, especially when it feels good and you're able to show up in consistency? And also, how can you celebrate and respect the things that you love and hold fast to what matters to you in a way that you can actually sustain? The final card is our dare card, and this is where I dare you to do something that might be hard. And this card for this month is the Eight of Wands, which I, again, love as we move into Leo season, but also just feels wildly connected to some of the other things that we're talking about. It's a loud and literal theme, but our dare card includes the phrase direct action. It's also Mercury and Sag, which, like, Mercury and Sag, rise up. But I think this is really about I'm just going to stick with what's really on the surface here, which is, I dare you to show up in a new and brave way. Change, the kind of change that is required for the world that is currently falling apart and the new world that is struggling to be born. Change requires us to move outside of our comfort zones. Change does not happen when we only stay in safety, when we refuse to engage with things that push us or force us to, engage with new ideas or difficult personalities or things that might not feel familiar, right? And I'm not advocating for you to act really recklessly or to not use any kind of caution or intention or thought. That's not what we're talking about. But I am urging you to consider the ways that you can show up right now that might cost you a little something, right? That might push you a little bit, that might require a little bit more effort or a little bit more resourcing or a little bit more stretching. And you can do this by thinking about how you've already been showing up and how it feels for you. I want you to think about if there's an opportunity or a possibility available to you that you could challenge yourself with this month, something that keeps like popping up in your social media feed, or that you keep being like, oh, I meant to do that, right? I really would love to get engaged in this way. I would really love to do this. Is there some way of showing up that might like double down or deepen your impact? Something that you can tack onto what you've already been doing, or a way that you can deepen the work that you have already been able to show up for, right? Thinking about that Knight of Pentacles again, where could you maybe push that to the next level? This month, I dare you to try it. I dare you to actually sign up for the volunteer shift and actually show up, right? I dare you to go to that local mutual aid meetup. I dare you to call your representative on the phone instead of sending an email. Be nice. The person who's answering the phone is not your representative. They work really hard. That's a job I would never want. I also dare you to instead, if none of those things really resonate, or if you already do those things, I dare you to challenge yourself to make a more overtly political piece of artwork, or to talk to that friend that has a different political view, and you both kind of tend to just talk around it because it's more comfortable, right? Whatever is going to make sense to you, go all in and see what happens, and pay attention to the feeling that comes up, and note if it's as bad as you thought it was going to be before you did it. But the Eight of Wands has a lot of like smoothness to it. It can often be like kind of obstacles falling away. So to me, this really feels like an opportunity for the things that we're doing to have perhaps an even bigger, more beautiful impact than we thought, which I think is a nice thing to hold fast to as we move into some sticky time, sticky moments.
Sticky times.
Sticky
Thank
time.
you. All of that was so good.
Hashtag sticky times. That made me, the Eight of Wands was making me think of questions I want to ask Wendy at the
I
end.
thought about Wendy too in the Eight of Wands.
Incredible.
Look at that. Look at
Love
God.
that. Look
Whoa,
at
whoa,
God.
whoa.
Look at Wendy.
I've been doing a lot of solar work, like personally, with prayers and materia and just themes and energies. So like carrying the sun as a major theme into July in that way, that's both, getting comfortable with visibility, but also like let the light shine on that which is gnarly and not nice. Like that feels very resonant just on a personal level. So
Yeah, and the point about political art, like if you're already a person that takes direct action in some ways, like thinking outside of the box about direct action, I really love that. And one of the themes of my WIP Summer, is visibility does not equal safety. And that's what I thought about when you were talking about that as well, is like, that is really true. And it's obviously more true for others. You were talking about all the layers of intersectionality and like thinking about visibility and safety through the lens of what you look like, who you are in the world, all of that really just rings true for this month too.
Yeah.
Should we just get into cauldrons? I feel like
Do it.
Yeah,
I
I
feel like,
think so.
yeah, we've spoken about the vibes. They're bad. No.
Vibes are rough.
They're messy, as B said. It's all messy.
They're a little messy. So I took a more pragmatic approach to numbers and finance this month because I think we're going to have plenty of time to be in our feelings about it, but that's not exactly what July is offering you if you can get out of the emotions, which no judgment if you can't. Again, I cry at Verizon Wireless commercials. But my main question was, what do you need your money to do for you? That is the main question for July. How are you stretching yourself too thin? Where have you maybe taken your eyes off the prize? Meg said, eyes on the prize life coaching. But where are you practicing ignorance is bliss when there could be a better way to manage, handle, fill in the blank your finances? So this month, everyone is encouraged to look at the bank account or the bill that you've been avoiding. Grab a friend, use a body double, call in your guides. You don't have to do this alone, really, whatever you need, but start to get yourself organized. Start looking, start asking the tough questions. Again, this is awareness and acceptance work of I will look at the credit score, but really start sitting with the realities of your financial situation. No urgency, no rush, but the time is now. And similarly to the end of Meg's tarot sentiments was hopefully it's easier once you start. I think August will feel better financially. So we're just getting clear with reality now here in July. Sorry.
Very consistent with that. We have Mercury retrograde, and Uranus is also going into a Mercury ruled sign. I would not take big swings or big splurges financially this month. Make sure you're doing what you need to do to take care of you and yours, but I would advise reining in any major impulses. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the coffee you get as a treat at the end of your walk, every day. Your coffee is fine. The $4.99 a month, dropout subscription or newsletter subscription, that is fucking fine. This is very just, I wouldn't book tickets for a last minute trip to Europe, that's actually the other thing I wanted to quickly touch on is, especially with Mercury retrograde, spending around travel. It can be really, really, really fraught. So we are loving staycations and short distance, be a tourist in your own city / region type of trips this month.
So I pulled the Eight of Swords because we're just on brand. So I don't even really know that I have to say much else, but it's probably going to feel a little tender this month when it comes to money, which doesn't necessarily mean that money stuff will actually be hard or that you actually don't have money, just that it might feel hard or it might feel fraught. If you are someone for whom money brings a lot of anxiety or tenderness, again, hello, hi, come sit with me. Just take some extra care to shore up your personal supports and resources now. Help yourself feel more stable and grounded so that if you feel activated or if, scary moments are coming up, you already have what you need to take care of yourself. And if you're not, if you're one of those magical people that somehow is just chill as fuck about money, teach us your ways. But also remember that sometimes it can feel, even if things feel good most of the time, sometimes it can feel like we don't have any options when we actually do, right? We've got another 8 here, and that can be really again, eyes on the prize, but kind of barreling forward in the way that we already know. And so just remember that you might have more agency than you think, even with something like money. So if you find yourself really doubling down on a particular story or one particular version of your truth around money this month, consider expanding that perspective, or maybe ask someone else to help you get a bit of a reality check.
Okay, for home, the question, again, 7 energy brought questions to the table. Spoiler alert. But do you fit within the shape of your home? That's very hermit crab-esque. We've talked a lot in recent months about taking actions to make your physical space more of a home or a sanctuary. And again, I'm saying home or even house in a very general way. You can add in the context of your own living situation. But I really think that unfortunately, July could reveal just how much you do not fit anymore in the space that you're occupying, whether that's because your family has grown or a work from home situation has shifted and suddenly you're sharing space that you didn't have to before. So something could feel off, or it could feel really good and like your work has paid off and now you're like the most comfortable. Obviously, I hope that's all of us, but either way, just be really present and be where you are in the month. You don't have to make quick moves around. Like if you realize that you have outgrown the shell, it's like that's not the day that you put a down payment on a house or sign a lease, but it might be the day that you start to look at what's in your area and what might work for you. Talk to your people. Again, there is a very much like you're not alone in this. We have partners, we have families, we have friends. Again, August brings us more actionable energy. So this could be just a month of observing and coming to terms with, or hopefully basking in the truth of your home life.
That also makes me think, B, of how Taurus risings are having Mercury retrograde in their fourth house of home, like their Leo house, which is going to be, so for Taurus risings especially, I would just like underline everything B said like 20 times. Astrologically, generally speaking, between Jupiter and Cancer and it being Cancer season for most of the month, the vibes for home are pretty cozy, TBH. But that doesn't mean don't be social. Like, cozy does not mean we hermit and we don't see anybody. Like, to me, the Sun Jupiter in Cancer moment has a very big, like, have your friends over for potlucks, or like have people you love, have your lesbian wives over for a game night. Like, build a fort to watch a movie with your kids instead of going out to the movie theater. You know, it's very like we're staying in, we're doing domestic, cozy, budget friendly activities that intentionally build intimacy with the people who we love and live with. Yeah.
I love that. I pulled Judgment for us. And so, which, really, I think resonates with what both of you were saying, but especially be around like, do you still fit in your space? To me, this feels very connected to like, does your home represent who you are now? Or is it still catering to past versions of you, right? Did this used to be your dream home and now it doesn't really fit anymore? Or, did you organize your office 2 careers ago or something, like it just kind of has that shape of like, are there parts of your home that used to really suit you, but now just feel like echoes of the past? Has your style evolved? Do your practical needs evolve? Have you gotten sick and now your like literal body needs like actual accessibility aids that don't work in that house or that you haven't gotten yet? Think this month about any opportunities you might have to make choices that reflect your present day preferences and needs, and pay attention to anything that might bubble up in your home, in your house, or in the people who are in your home or your house. Make changes that might feel good for who you are right now and that actually take care of who you are right now.
Yeah. Everything that both of you said, I was like, yes, okay. That was like the first moment of real hope I had for July.
Oh, we love that.
You're in cozy home.
Cozy
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
We love a potluck situation. We love friends over. We love going to friends' homes. That's a really nice way to spend time with your beloveds and be
It
there.
is.
Especially in a heat wave when nobody wants to go outside, which
literally
like
dangerous to be outside right now.
Yeah. And also to have like a simple summer. We called it something last summer, but it wasn't cheap summer, but essentially it was cheap summer.
Yeah.
And we said, like, whoever comes over, don't go to the store and buy something. Like, bring your half-eaten bag of chips. Bring the seltzers from the fridge. Like, so even especially in a month where we've said don't spend anything.
I'm trying to think of the alliterative word you might have used.
I know. I'll have to think of maybe thrifty summer. No. I don't know. I'll think about it. Okay, love has cheeky vibes this month. This is where we're going to talk about being snakes again.
Oh no.
I know. Love has cheeky vibes this month. So what I want to bring forward is this aspect of 7 that is mysterious and not always clear and kind of on the DL, making moves. So everything might not be what it seems in July when it comes to love. July may also find you bonding with your beloveds over shared interests or rabbit holes. This could also mean shared delusions, so be careful of what like feels really good to only the two of you, and everyone outside of it is like, oh, hey, let's have some chats about this. But this is really big gossipy energy, and I think that's so much a part of love and relationships. But again, watch yourself. Like, this is the month to be mindful of who you're saying things to and what you might actually be revealing about yourself when you think you're talking about someone else. And I literally wrote, it's fine to be a snake, but when someone gets bit, you have to own your own jaws. And so 7 energy is very much not really in its feels. So this kind of has the vibe of you being like, or us, being shocked when we hurt someone's feelings. Like, oh, I didn't know that would happen. And then having to navigate that, but in a way that, again, you have to take accountability for what you did. We're going to make it. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, astrologically speaking, very flirty summer vibes over here. Very good vibes for a summer fling or for reigniting the spark in a long-term relationship. Venus is in Gemini from July 4th to the 30th, so the vast majority of the month, which is but Venus in Gemini herself is very flirty, very banter, very friends to lovers, very sharp and sexy. Maybe a little bit sarcasm as a love language, which, like, know your audience. This banter, but I say that because the banter and the sharpness and all of that might get a little lost with the Mercury retrograde that kicks off mid-month, which is unfortunately like peak rom-com with a miscommunication trope. And so just follow up, talk it out, remember what assuming does. And again, the month ends with really cozy vibes. At the very, very end of the month, on July 30th, Venus goes into Cancer, joining Jupiter. And so, cuffing season might be coming for you a little early.
Our card, speaking of Cancer, is the Ace of Cups. This is our water. Like we don't always have all the elements represented, but we do have some water, which I think is nice. So the Ace is the start of that story, right? And so whether you're meeting someone new or shifting a relationship, right? Speaking of friends to lovers, right? If a relationship is evolving or you're changing formats or whatever, the Ace of Cups is really here for it. Like the Ace of Cups is into it. The Ace of Cups is ready. As B would say, this is a juicy card for love and relationships. And I think especially it's really juicy in terms of potential for things to move in any kind of direction, right? We're really starting off strong and we're thinking about all the things that could be. And so this energy can feel really good and exciting and potent, but there can also kind of be some overflow of the cup in terms of what feels good to say in a moment and what actually might be true, if that makes sense, right? Sometimes we just say something because it's exciting or it feels good or because in the moment we're really vibing, but there's an importance here of like actually paying attention to what's really resonating with your deeper emotions and longings. So try not to get too lost in the sauce when it comes to love or get too carried away too quickly with something before you actually take the time to check in and see, is this actually what I want? Or is it just like really fun and feels really good in this particular moment?
Don't say I love you just because the sex was really good. That's
part.
That's just that.
There's lots of ways that could look, but yes,
Sorry.
that one. No, I love it. It's helpful to have a real example. Like, that's fucking real. Don't say you love someone just because the sex was good. Good sex is good sex. Love is love. Yeah, that's it. There's plenty of space to play here, right? This can be a really playful, joyful energy. There can be fun new connections. Again, there can be great sex. I did write that down. And also, like, the emotional vibes are good, right? Mm-hmm. Just remember that this is a beginning energy. This is honeymoon phase. This is like, ooh, boppity bop bop. And it can grow into all kinds of other things depending on what you want. So yeah, just don't get lost.
What was that, babe? Ooh, boppity bop bop. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
This is reminding me of the game Marseille Ace of Cups, which is like literally boobs squirting milk.
Incredible. It's a lotus flower in the I don't know why
that's much more tame,
but I like the lotus.
Cancer energy rules the breasts. So
have fun out there, kids. A lot of water.
Drink water.
I mean, big squirt energy. Okay. Elf, hey. Okay, health, I mean, definitely like have orgasms every month, but
Yeah.
this month feels like a choose your own adventure type thing when it comes to health. But the two questions are, is this a maintenance month? Is this a training montage? Maybe it's a little bit of both. The good news is that Seven Energy is again like very practical and pragmatic, but it is full of spirit. It has some hope to it. It is full of faith. So it's this transitional energy that's gearing us up for a big change. So this month, can you let everything be easy or on autopilot or simple and straightforward when it comes to your health? This is not where we take big swings. This is where we find satisfaction in the day-to-day efforts of caring for a body. So in July, this is sleep, this is nourishment, this is movement. There's a balance of effort and rest. What is input? This is very, very Jeanna. What is input, not output? But kind of this secret middle thing. So when it comes to health, stay grounded, clear, consistent. I loved what Meg said earlier about consistency not meaning daily or even weekly. But when it comes to your health, yeah, we're in maintenance, but we're also kind of in training. So it feels smooth though, which feels really, I'm just crossing all of my fingers and like, yes, please, dear Lord.
Yeah, so I'm just going to flag a few days that may be a little less than smooth, essentially. So, astrologically speaking, we are going to be having, for the next 8 years, Gemini moons. And again, the moon goes through every sign in a month. So, the moon cycle is 28 days. So, we have Gemini moons every single month. But starting in July, it will be co-present with Uranus in Gemini. And so this first co-presence for us here in the Northern Hemisphere is July 20th to 22nd. And Uranus brings its zippy chaos to our little tender moon underbelly, which can really exacerbate the potential for anxiety and is something to be aware, again, just to be aware of as we move through the next few years, especially if you, like me, are a very anxious person. So this is a good time to make sure that you're regulating your nervous system. Less screen time is my top practical recommendation, something I'm also actively trying to do more of, but maybe mark those days in particular for like screen overuse and like putting your phone on its charger in another room. It's just a really good time to start practicing putting it down and rebuilding your attention span. Is one of my personal goals this summer, is to start working on my attention span and trying to get it back to where it was like a few years ago. So
B, I love what you're saying about like balancing maintenance with effort, because I've started weight training and it's literally like it's very intentional about like the days that you're putting in effort and then the days that you rest, you actually have to rest, and the days that you're doing effort. And it feels really good for me to just have like a very simple one day on, one day off like schedule. And I've spent this month building it. So July, I just get to keep doing it and it feels great. So just wanted to share that because I loved that. The card I pulled for us is the Page of Pentacles. So we had the Knight of Pentacles earlier, kind of as an overall truth, but now we have the Page of Pentacles specifically offering us some medicine for health. The Next World Tarot calls this the home of ideas, which I love since we're talking about earth. And I feel like that might be a phrase that you would associate with like swords or air, but ideas can live in the body as well. And I wanted to pull out the little book for this one and read this particular line. The Page of Pentacles appears in times of taking control and owning the magic you wield. And so I love this as a health card, but also as a general body card, right? How do you take care of yourself? How do you show up for yourself on a consistent basis, even if it might not seem conventional or consistent to other people? What do you know about yourself and your body and what your body needs? And how can you stay true in that awareness this when it comes to honoring your needs as well as your limits? How can you stay well resourced and belong within your body in a way that actually feels good for you? I always think about pages as being rebels, and I think it's so important, especially with our health stuff, to not compare our bodies or our capacities or our abilities to show up with the ways that other people are doing the same thing with their bodies. It can be really hard to like figure out what your own rules are for protecting your health. And I feel like it's so easy to compare, especially with like capacity. So I just loved that card showed up for us. Like, pay attention to what you need. You get to be the expert of your own body. And the Page of Pentacles doesn't care what other people are doing. It cares what you're doing. So That's my speech. I'll get off my soapbox.
A good soapbox.
It is. Yeah. Okay. Our cauldrons give me hope that there's like workable energy this month. That definitely didn't really exist in my numerological forecast. But also like when major planets are moving, that does also feel like the situation we're finding ourselves in now. Like there's a lot going on, but we're not in control of any of it.
Yeah.
So
how do we take care of ourselves while witnessing?
Yeah. And figuring out ways that we can show up for ourselves and for our communities in ways that we can actually maintain, right? I feel like especially with like these big marches and all these big dramatic things that are happening, there can be this desire to like, I gotta do everything. And it's like, no, you can't do everything. Actually, surprise. So pick a few things you can do well and you can commit to and keep doing them.
Yeah, and often, whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
Totally.
B, do we have time for mini questions for Wendy?
Do it. Let's do
Wendy,
it.
the magic 8 ball.
Yes. Wendy, well, I guess we should ask her. Wendy, are you ready to answer some questions? You may rely on it. Exactly what she said when her name was Wendy. Okay, great. We love it. Perfect.
Okay. Incredible.
Who wants to go first?
I don't have any questions. I'm sure they'll pop up, but I don't have one in my brain right now. So, babe, if you have one, I think you should go.
I have a question because publishing moves at the speed of a snail. Will I be able to officially announce my new book project in July?
Oh, I know what answer I'm hoping for. Cannot predict now.
Because publishing is so fucked. Wendy cannot predict.
Wendy can't tell.
Yeah, Wendy's like, actually, don't come to me if it doesn't happen. So I'm just going to say TBD.
Noted. Sure. All right. Well, thank you for your energy, Wendy.
Damn. Yeah, thank you, Wendy. Meg, anything?
I mean, like, I know my book is definitely coming out.
Which we do have to promote.
I know. I'll hold it up. There's a copy over there. I'm going to go get it. But I don't know if I have any questions. I'm so tired.
Will Meg be less tired at the end of July?
Will I be less tired at the end of July?
Then they are now.
Ever be less tired again?
Than they are now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Great. Thank God.
Okay.
Thank you. See, we have some hope for July.
Okay. Oh no. Do I have a question for Wendy? I'm blanking on every question I've ever thought. I guess Jeanna asked Meg's. Jeanna,
gave me a question.
I'm going over. Do you want to ask a question about like Love Island or about the rom-com that you're writing?
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Because it's WIP Summer.
Yes. That's it.
Will this is such a bad question. Okay, Jeanna, fix my question.
How did I become the question asker? Okay.
How about a 7 public persona?
I know. I was like, I couldn't say. I was like, that's too much to get into.
Okay.
You can't do that.
My question is like, will I be farther along on my WIP?
What I'm gonna ask is, will you have a completed draft by the end of summer for the WIP?
Okay, for the WIP.
Yeah, I never asked anything yes or no questions. I don't even know how to do yes or no questions.
This is all horary astrology.
Yes. Yeah? Yay!
Oh my God. Okay.
Incredible.
Okay. Completed draft by the end of summer.
Okay, wait. Then I have to ask, is this book one? Because I have multiple ideas.
It's true.
Outlook not so good. Okay, we love to see it. Is this the Love Island? It is decidedly so. Okay.
Good. I'm excited about that one. So
okay, that's the one that I'm the most excited about. Not like I'm not excited for all of them, but I've already read some of it, so I feel very invested in the Love Island.
And it feels like it's happening. We're watching Love Island. I should be writing. Okay. We're switching gears.
But it might be easier to be writing, or it might come through in a more simple and supported way, since we're watching this deeply chaotic season of Love Island. Yeah. I'm also only watching USA. I should probably start watching UK.
Oh, we have to do one at a time. We can only do
I don't
one
usually try
villa.
to do them both, but
Yeah.
USA is burning out. Anyway.
Also, we have Queer Ultimatum coming back.
Oh my god.
Messy. We
I'm
love
so
that.
excited for both of you and the shows. Babe, can you promote your new book? You have a new book coming out this month.
On Bee's birthday.
On 7/7.
On Bee's birthday.
Yes, I have a new book. I actually have a copy. Can you believe?
It's so pretty.
And it's the same size as Finding the Fool. So if you have the other one, they are the same size. They're the same like finish. They're the same font. They're besties. They're so cute. But yeah, Tarot Spreads, it's coming out so soon. And by the time you're listening to this, it'll be like within a week. So 7/7, please pre-order it. If you want a signed copy, order from Astoria Bookshop in New York because I will sign it for you.
Link in the show notes.
But yeah, it's got hundreds and hundreds of tarot spreads in it. It does talk you through like kind of the basics of what tarot is, but it really is for anyone who wants to integrate deeper questions or more thoughtful questions or more intentional questions into their practice. I think it's very easy. As you've seen, sometimes, it's kind of challenging to ask a question, but especially with the tarot, since we're not generally asking yes or no questions, it actually requires a little bit more thought around what we're going to ask and why we're going to ask it. And I talk a lot in this book about that because it really can help us develop our readings in ways that are really beautiful and are really going to answer what we need and help give us the kind of information that we need to navigate this hellscape of a world. So it covers reading spreads. If you like spreads, but you don't always know how to engage with them, it's going to cover that. It also covers writing spreads. If you love seeing the spreads that are out in the world and you're like, I want to learn how to do that, I will give you multiple methods for doing that, as well as exercises that you can go through to try them out. And then the last section is on revising spreads. So if you like seeing spreads out in the world and you're like, ooh, that's close, it's not exactly what I want, this will talk you through how to very practically adjust the spread to reflect what it is you really want to know and make sure that you don't like break the spread. Although I encourage you to break the spread too. But.
And again, there are hundreds of prompts in this book that I think is so, so useful for people at any level of tarot. Because like, even if you're like us and you've been, reading tarot for like a decade, plus whatever, it's like, sometimes we still get stuck. Or at least I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I still get stuck.
I get stuck.
And I'm like, I don't know what spread to do. I don't know how to ask this question. And you very conveniently have a list organized by topic. And it's just like, I don't know. I just think it's such an essential resource. And not only because you're my wife, but because
I appreciate that.
I think it's great. It's a good
No, there's whole lists of like just prompts and questions you can use to like create spread. I just like list out like all of these different individual prompts that you can mix and match to make your own spread. There's just like a lot of different ways to create spreads. So I'm really trying to set you up for success in your readings. So yeah.
Makes a great gift for people too.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a little labor of love, but yeah, very happy to have it out in the world and to be able to rest from promotion because it's exhausting, but it's good.
No worries.
Yeah.
Well, yes. Please pre-order. That all counts for day one sales, which counts for week one sales, which is very important.
Yeah.
And we'll have all those links in the show notes. Anything else going on in July?
Yeah, I have a lot of events. I've sent them out on my newsletter, so we can link to that as well. If you're in the New York City area or you want to attend some virtual events, I'm setting some cool things up there as well. But I'm also going to do a 7-day tarot spread series within my Discord server. So that's for my paid newsletter subscribers and people who are in the conservatory. So we'll be doing those for the first 7 days of July as like a little build up to the book coming out. So if you love spreads, if you want to be part of a digital community full of really lovely, sweetheart tarot readers, it's just like got the nicest, sweetest, most lovely people in it, and come hang out and do some spreads with us. So,
and Meg and I are going to be opening the next 6-month session of the Grove.
Yes,
as well. Yes. And more to come on that, but we'll have the link in show notes because we should have some tentative things up by then. And if it's not up for this one, then it'll be up for our next July episode.
Yeah, it'll be very good.
So we're probably launching it mid-month, but that's just something to keep an eye out for if you were interested in doing it last time and it didn't work. Like, we're going to do it again. So, yeah.
I'm going to be doing some written readings this summer, some written numerology readings.
Incredible.
The information will come out on, hopefully, or around July first.
Mhm.
And it'll just be in my Discord. So I'm keeping
Oh,
things
damn.
really small for summer because my capacity is really low. So there will be a handful of readings available both in July and in August, but they'll be available first and foremost to the Discord. So again, that is also through my paid newsletter. If you want to get weeklies, that's how I know June has gone by so fast. I'm like, I have to write this weekly newsletter again.
Yeah.
I
Get
just did
desperate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyway, I'll be doing more writing in July and August. So if you want a numerology reading, you can find out more in the soup.
And Bee's numerology readings are amazing.
They're
And Bee
so
has taught
good.
me so much about numbers, so you should get one.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Otherwise, we'll see you a little bit later this month.
Mhm.
We are sending love, protection, comfort, support, joy, whatever you need.
Tight screws.
Tighten the screws.
Tight screws.
Wishing you tight screws.
Wishing you
in every sense of the word.
Lie. Okay. We'll see you on the next one.
Be safe out there, friends.
Bye.
Bye.